Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love Jack Lemmon.
What's her mouth though? Classic.
And okay, I guess we're here. Are we here?
As here as we can be.
We're here. We're already recording, by the way. I have.
Great. All of that has been
I had to.
saved for fun.
I had to. Because it was just so ridiculous. And here we are.
That is what Chuck and I would do in the back seat of the car. Well, he would make the noises and I'd laugh because that was your favorite thing to do.
Hey, Alice. Whoa. Glank, yeah.
Turn before we all die.
Do it now before we all die. Chuck!
There you go. Good scene. There you go.
Hi, everybody. Once again, we are the Todd-CAST. I'm Chuck.
I'm Kris.
Alyce.
Hi.
I don't know what to do. I don't know.
That was
I know.
It's just,
that was
it is
silly.
And awkward. You know.
No, normal. Awkward for all of you. Completely normal for us.
Yeah, true.
So
Anyway, we are the Todd-CAST, and tonight we are going to be discussing We're Colorado Kids, or otherwise known as Why Are You Like That?
and haven't we proven that at the start of this whole thing?
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like there you are.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Lack of oxygen up here. Does it to us.
The rarefied air is it helps some. Yeah, why are we like this? I mean, we grow up at a higher elevation than a lot of the other contiguous United States.
Yeah.
We have a little, I can't say we have colder winters than anybody else because we don't.
No, not even close.
Our winters, I think, would be unique because we've had a really, what we would consider a dry winter.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And we average about 320 some odd days of sunshine.
Yeah.
We do.
So
Even if it snows,
yeah.
it'll go away and the sun will shine. You
I
know?
was going to say it'll snow for 12 hours and then
melt.
And then we're
you
all
know,
done.
That's
Here we
spring.
are.
That's spring around here. You know, like
Well,
it's
and-
just
and fall
and
somewhat.
fall. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, those transitional seasons
It's taught us to be flexible.
Yeah.
they're wonderfully mild compared to a lot of other places.
Yeah, we don't have the
You
extended periods of cold. Like if you go to the Dakotas or Minnesota, Michigan, like the upper near the border,
Mm-hmm.
we have mild.
Where the sun
Yeah.
doesn't come out for months.
Now-
and
We can get down below zero.
Yes.
oh yeah.
Okay, we
January,
can get down. We
typically
can
do.
get down below
Yeah.
zero. We've
And-
had some pretty frigid temperatures.
I want to say, and have extended periods of time where it's below zero as well, because you get the polar vortex
Yeah.
coming down,
Yeah.
which is usually the beginning of the year, January,
Mm-hmm.
and it can sock us in there for a long time.
But
And-
yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, but unlike climates with humidity, it doesn't feel nearly as
No.
bone chilling as it does near water.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt. And
Yeah.
if the sun's out, it can be below zero, but you're not that uncomfortable
No.
as long as you've got,
The proper,
a proper hat, gloves, coat
boots.
situation. But I've been shoveling in below zero weather with the sun out and had to take
'Cause
my
you get all
jacket
sweaty.
off. Yeah. And
It's
put on
3
a lighter
below and I'm
jacket.
sweating.
Yeah. I'm like, why
Yeah.
are you just in a sweatshirt?
So that's why we're like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, layers are a thing.
Real.
know.
Yes. In fact,
Yeah,
I'm layered.
not only
I'm not today, but
layered, but your car has an entire 4 seasons worth of clothing in it because you
That's
just
right.
never know what you're going to run
That's
into in a given microclimate.
yeah, in the middle of July or August, we still have some cold weather coats in the car
Mm-hmm.
just in case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you go up to altitude and it's going to be it could be snowing up there.
Yeah, because
so.
you never know when those friends come in from out of state and it's like, hey, you guys want to go see some snow? And it's July.
Mm-hmm.
And you can.
And of course the answer is yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so we
Call them out.
Ridge.
take them on up.
Yep.
And they also are, when they get out of the car, it's cold up here.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Here's a coat.
Yeah.
That's
you
why
know.
there's still snow on the ground.
Here's the jacket. There we
Yeah.
are.
But similarly,
Yeah.
you go out when it's 10 below in the morning, and by afternoon it's 55. So you need a different jacket and
Yeah.
different.
And that's
top
our
and-
December.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. And conversely, also in the summertime, we can get above 100.
Oh, yeah.
And we've had weeks that we were closing in on 110, even over 110.
Yeah. It was
So,
hot.
you know,
Particularly in southern Colorado.
Yeah.
you know, and I know all my friends down in Phoenix are patting me on the head going,
You're
oh,
cute. I mean,
that's cute.
But
Yeah.
that's, I mean, you're a full long desert.
Oh, yeah.
We're
Yeah.
high plains desert, so there's a lot of variability with that climate.
Yeah.
So
We have occasionally these things called rain. So
It's very rare. We never plan on rain.
No, we don't.
Mm-mm.
We don't. And
that's not true.
thank you.
June thunderstorms in
2
the
o'clock.
afternoon
2 o'clock
are
in the afternoon.
clockwork.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's 40 minutes tops.
Oh yeah,
And then
doesn't-
you're done.
Not all day.
Oh, well, no, we're not
But
talking about.
you can watch the
monsoons.
thunderheads build up on the eastern plains
Sure.
and blow in, and you can tell by the color of the cloud whether it's going to have hail in it or if it's just going to be a really fat, huge storm, or
Right.
whether
Or
there's
if
a
it's-
tornado in there.
Yeah. Or if
you
it's
know?
just
Oh,
going
yeah.
to be a lot
Oh, yeah.
of thunder and
Thunder
lightning
and nothing.
And nothing.
Very, very
Yeah.
frightening.
And you watch, yes. And you watch it rain
Yeah,
about
yeah.
halfway down, and then it just evaporates.
Yeah.
So
So that and reading clouds is a real
Mm-hmm.
skill.
Yep. And
not just for the farmers.
No.
Yeah.
and it's something we learn early.
We learned early on. Yeah.
We learn what the anvil cloud looks like. We also
Yeah.
learn what the beaver tail is all about.
Yeah.
We also learn because the beaver tail tells us where the energy of the storm is coming from.
and how the
you
wind
know.
is blowing up high.
Yep. We know what a wall cloud looks
Mm-hmm.
like. Yes, all you people out there, out east of us and southeast of us, are laughing at us, saying, you guys, you don't know what tornadoes are. Oh, yes, we do.
We do.
Oh,
Not
yes,
as
we do.
often, but yes, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not as often, and often not as lethal
True.
as a,
True.
yeah, because the mountains will eventually stop a tornado. So
Well-
it doesn't just go on and on for miles.
Well, and the temperature difference between cold up, hot down is not necessarily as extreme for
Right.
as long, but it can happen here. We can
Well,
have those days.
Also, the humidity factor,
Humidity as well. Yeah.
is something to factor in with tornadoes as well. We don't have that high of humidity,
Right.
thankfully.
Yeah.
yeah.
Praise
But again,
God.
the further east in Colorado you go, the more likely tornadoes are
are
a real
common.
thing.
And the higher the humidity goes.
Yeah.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
And we are part of the Eastern Plains are part of Tornado Alley.
Yes.
Just a
Yes,
little
they
bit.
are.
Just
But they
that
are there.
last little
Yeah.
sliver. But yeah.
But I've seen tornadoes even form on the foothills.
Oh yeah. I
Oh,
mean,
sure.
it's
Yeah.
it is very, very possible.
Oh, yeah.
But those extremes have to happen in order for it to form. So.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
More likely to get devastating hail.
Oh, hail is a big thing.
Yeah.
Bigger thing than a tornado is a hailstorm.
Yeah.
And big hail.
Yeah. Baseball size.
Yeah.
we can get them big.
Big.
Yeah.
And
We
the-
go on big here.
If the clouds are green,
yeah.
you got hail.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's true. And tornadoes.
And tornadoes. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're both the same, but if they're that really minty green,
Oh, yeah.
you know you're going to have hail.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. For the tornado, it's all of a sudden the wind stops
And silent.
and the birds stop.
yeah.
Yeah. When you don't hear birds.
Yeah.
Something's going to happen.
Yeah.
Go to the basement.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And well, and everybody talks about, listen for that locomotive sound, that big
The
train
rumble.
rumbling
It's too
through.
late.
And it's like, no, that means it's already here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although you can use that for hail. You can hear
Oh,
the
yeah.
rumble come for the hail and then
Oh, yeah.
it drops.
Mm-hmm.
They make noise. Yeah.
I remember us being out at Grandpa's house, and it was one of those storms where it was the big quarter-sized hail that was about to fall. And I was standing on the driveway, and the driveway at my grandfather's house was all dirt.
And it was
Dirt
long.
and sand. Yeah, dirt and sand. And we would play out on that because, it was a good, nice open space. It was fantastic.
You had a good long run before you hit the street, so you
Right.
had distance to
Yeah.
turn around.
The only rule, No digging
No digging.
on that particular spot.
Go behind the garage.
Yeah, you could dig anywhere else but there.
Mhm.
And so it was no big deal. But I remember feeling the ground start to rumble a little. And I looked over to the west and I saw that white sheet.
Yeah.
And I started grabbing at you and I started grabbing at Dawn. It's like, come on, we got to go inside. We got to go inside. Well, why? We got to. And I said, because it's coming.
Yeah, we got 10 minutes max.
Yeah. We really weren't that old.
No.
You know, I think I was barely 11.
5 or 6. Dawn and I were 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, we weren't that old.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was.
Well, if you're going to play outside, you got to learn how to read the weather.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you got to keep safe. And, you know, the thunderstorms and the lightning strikes. I mean, Colorado is a lightning strike capital, one of the lightning strike capitals of the world. So you learned.
Yeah, I think
real quick
only Florida is worse.
There's some places in like Africa that are.
Actually,
well,
that are,
I mean,
you know,
in the United
like
States.
Yeah.
the place for it is Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
But
because they actually have a lab there specifically for lightning strikes.
But you learned to read that weather, and if it was gonna turn bad, you got yourself inside.
And see, that was the thing is like, I remember there was a week that we were up at Grandpa's house a lot playing, and there was a week where every day it was a brutal thunderstorm.
You had to come inside.
Yeah,
get out of
and
the pool.
it was we'd go out, and one of us would always be sentry, looking out west.
Yeah,
you know, it was
because it would come in inevitably, and you had to get inside. And there was one year where there were actually tornadoes over downtown.
Yes,
and Dawn, you weren't with us. It was just me, Dawn, and Mom. And we had to get into the basement, and I am so uncomfortable with tornadoes. They terrify me. Oops, sorry. It's one of those weather phenomenons that I can't. No, thank you. And Dawn was like, "Let's just watch it. Look how they're cool." I'm like, "No, like get inside." Like we were bickering and bantering about like she wanted to watch, and I was like, "No." And so anyway,
they're freaky.
It was scary.
They're freaky.
That's a lot of power. And the destruction and everything just terrifies me. I don't like it.
And again, same with me. I'm somewhat brave. I mean, I can be out in a storm and I do okay. But when it comes to a tornado, I don't like being that exposed with that kind of wind. Okay. I really don't.
It's not that the wind is blowing.
It's what the wind is blowing.
Yeah, that's the thing about it. The power of that. The other, I can even tolerate a good lightning thunderstorm.
But again, you don't want to be outside.
You don't want to be outside. No, I'll watch that from the protection of my home.
Oh, exactly.
But I won't. But like being out, I'm not a storm chaser.
Were you ever in a place where lightning struck close by?
Yes.
Yes, that was the thing about living up on Lookout was lightning was a real threat up there. And it struck the tree at the top of our driveway and set off all of our smoke alarms.
We were at Grandpa's house once, and it struck right in front of the driveway.
Yes, it did.
And we were all in the basement, and your hairs literally stand up. You felt the energy, and it's the thunder and the lightning happen simultaneously, and it's so loud, and it's so loud, and you feel it, and everything stands up because the energy is so big.
Exactly. I was going to say that's a lot of energy.
I've seen flying.
Yeah,
I've seen lightning hit inside a pool.
Ooh,
so the whole get out of the water.
Pool.
Yeah. I've seen it, and it just you could just watch it because once it's underwater, you can kind of see the lightning bolt.
Cool but scary.
Yeah, because just a few minutes before we were in the pool. Yeah, because it was not a lifeguarded pool, so they didn't make us get out like an hour before the thunderstorm came.
Geez, yeah.
Yeah. And I wanted to go back to the hail because that's a real thing, right?
Yeah.
So there was a time when old Alyce was running and a hailstorm came through all of a sudden, because sometimes you can't
get out of the way.
And you can't get out of the way. And they had one of those, oh gosh, what do you call them? Like gondola kind of things, but open. That was just you ride it back and forth to get
the
a whole
sky buckets.
Yeah, to get a view of the park. And the people that were on that, so lightning struck, power went out, and the hail came,
Yeah.
And like once they were rescued, they had to be hospitalized because the hail, when they got hit on the head, it would concuss. So it was, and people had these severe bruises on their legs.
Yeah,
and,
wow.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there was just nothing that could be done.
I mean, I've gotten caught in a hailstorm. It was pea-size hail, and I thought I was going to die.
Oh yeah, that's a different
It hurt
kind of.
so bad.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's bouncing around and
Oh, it's
ricocheting
like-
off things, and
And it's a lot of velocity
Jeez.
falling from the
Yeah.
sky. Yeah.
Yeah, terminal velocity. It's hitting.
You don't want to
hard.
get caught in that at all.
no,
No, and since we've lived in this house, we've had to replace our roof twice because of hail.
Yeah.
And wind.
well,
So,
and like I said, because
yeah, they get up to quarter size or bigger.
that big
and-
around,
Yeah.
Well, and this kind of segues into the next topic. Our climate and our weather is solely based on our geography
Yes.
and what our land topography is all about.
yeah,
Mhm.
And
And we've got to know all of the differences from the plains to the
mountains to
to
the,
the foothills
west slope
and the western
Yeah.
slope. It's all very different. And high altitude mountains versus just the
Well,
lower mountains
with
and
that.
all of it.
And speaking of thunderstorms, in the mountains, the second that you notice the clouds change and
Get in.
rain's coming, you get inside.
yeah. You
There
get
is no staying outside at all.
either that or you get down low. You
Yeah,
get
if
down
you're
low.
Mom
stuck
and-
outside, dude.
Yeah.
Mom and Dad and I made a rookie error.
Hmm.
We knew better because we were going to do a camping trip. I was invited with the Parks and Wildlife, then the division. Going to do this free camping. It was going to be great. It was really cool. And we're like, okay, we'll go hiking. But the clouds, like I said it out loud. I was like, I said, those clouds look a little, And Mom's like, we'll be okay. And Dad's like, let's go. And we won't go far. We were literally on the trail 2 minutes. And I had to go, and this says something about things. I had to go hide under a fir tree
Oh my gosh.
because to get out to find shelter.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
And then our camp was all flooded out and we went home. So
Yeah. Remember the trip that we took, all of us together with Kat, Mom and Dad, you
for Dad's camp, for birthday camping.
Yeah, we went up to Rocky Mountain National
Mhm.
Park, and it
It
rained,
rained
that,
that night. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I almost made the decision that we were going to leave everything in camp and we were going to go down into Estes Park,
Get a hotel.
get a hotel room, come back and clean up as much as we can. Mom didn't want to do that. And I do understand because getting down the hill in the dark.
It was midnight.
Yeah.
It was late.
And it was already a bad storm
Yeah.
anyway.
You just stay put.
So, yeah, we were in lousy. The shelter was inadequate.
No.
It was completely inadequate.
I was getting dripped on. And we were yelling. I was like, for crying out loud. And Chuck's like, we're done with this.
That's right.
But I was like, all I needed to do was just push up on the top of the tent and get the water off. And then I
Yeah.
was fine. But it was just like
And then,
Cat slept through the whole
whole
thing.
thing.
yeah, you touched the side of the tent.
I know. And then I did the cardinal rule of don't touch it, but it was
Touched
dripping
the
on
side
me.
of the tent.
But I had to. It was either that or have it rip and
yeah.
flood me out anyway.
All right, so we do worry about rain.
Yeah.
But it is very
If you're
pocketed
in
in
it.
time, and
If
it's
you're in
not.
it.
But it's not like where the monsoon season comes.
Exactly.
We
But-
don't have that.
And here's
Very
where
rare.
here's where the geography gets into play.
Mhm.
Okay. During the daytime, all that sun is beating down on the plains. And all that hot
Making it.
air needs to go up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all that hot air is traveling up, and it's going up the side of the foothills all day long.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it's somewhat of a gentle breeze, it's somewhat of a nice, easygoing. You don't really notice it all that much until about 4:30 or 5 o'clock.
Like there's
And that's
And
when
then
the
it
sun
goes the
starts
other
moving
way. Mm-hmm.
the other direction, or starts moving to the west, and the air starts to cool down. Now, the air, when it cools down, does not do this nice, gentle
Gentle cool.
drop back down the hill.
it's immediate.
Yeah, it falls down the hill, and night,
Slides.
and
Like an
night,
avalanche.
and night falls. And there it is, and it comes rushing down the sides of the hills, and there you go. I mean, I love living next to the mountains, and yet there is parts that I don't like living next to the mountains.
It's always windy.
Always.
It's always windy, and the
Always.
strength of wind is dependent on temperature gradient a lot of times.
Oh,
but
yeah.
it is
Oh,
all,
yeah.
and you think about it too, like it's a big slide,
Mhm.
so
Yeah,
that
like I said,
air
everything
is
what
just gonna
comes up
move,
must come down.
and it's gravity and all of
Yeah.
that, and it moves it very quickly. And
Well, yeah, and again, our friends from Wyoming, I know you're patting our heads.
well, but
Oh, wind, that's cute.
their experience. I mean, they have the same geography, so they
Yeah.
get it. It's just
And it's much more dramatic.
yeah.
Up there,
Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
you know.
You know,
And the Dakotas. I think it's
Yeah.
North Dakota is like the wind capital of the United States.
I don't know.
There's
And-
one town where it is. Yeah.
and we're not describing it as like poor us. We got to deal with this. Like,
No.
this is what we're. Like,
And it's very much seasonal or time of
Yeah.
day.
Again, this is why we are the way we are. Okay.
there is always wind, and that
You know.
when you think about it too, like everybody has this perception that our winters are always snowy and always blustery, and that you have weather coming on the west side of things, and it hits the mountains and it gets stopped,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and then you
Yeah.
have to have it push it. There has to be some energy to push it over the mountains, and by the time it gets over the mountains, it's dropped all of its precipitation. So and it gets to the eastern plains, and then it's just this wet. It's just air at that point,
Yeah. Yeah, where it really gets, where Denver gets hit. And yeah, so it's a big myth that Denver's buried in snow all
No.
winter long, because you see the footage of the mountains. The mountains are getting hammered
Yeah,
all winter long.
because it gets
Absolutely.
drops there.
Mm-hmm.
But for us, it's not quite as common. Or if it is, as we mentioned already, it's a few inches, and by noon, it's the sidewalks are all melted.
Right.
And particularly if you live on the south,
The right
southern,
side, the correct side of the street.
you have to live on the
Yeah.
correct side of the street. And if you get it shoveled in time, then you're all good.
You
But-
live on the north side of the street
Street.
with a southern exposure.
That's
Uh-huh.
right. So when we get hammered is when the weather takes a little dip south, picks up moisture from the Gulf, and then comes it up,
Mhm.
and then it comes up and it gets trapped against the mountains. So it has nowhere to go, and it just dumps on
Dumps.
us.
Yeah.
Depending on how long the storm is, if it is still sucking out of the Gulf, even though that's 900 miles away,
Not that far.
it's
though.
not that far when you're a big storm system. And we can just get hammered and get several feet.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
So-
we can.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing, is you listen to a forecaster, and if they say that the weather's coming up from the south,
prepare.
I don't care what the forecaster says, I'm preparing for
Yeah,
a
something.
major storm.
There's going to be
Because
something happening.
yeah.
There you go.
This
is
is the way.
And that's
This is the way.
one of the reasons why our winters are not, you get snow, yes, but they're
It's-
not as impactful with weather as it is in the spring, because
Mhm.
of the western movement of storm systems
Yeah, and
and
everything
pressure
kind of
systems
shifts.
versus the spring and the
Yeah.
warmer systems.
So, and again, all that weather does get stuck in the hills or in the mountains.
Mhm.
The hills, listen to me. Okay, 14,000 foot hills. Anyway, the reason is because of the basins that are there.
Mhm.
Okay,
and the craggy rocks. And
and
stuff.
this is, we talked about this a little bit with the ski episode
Mhm.
from last year,
Yeah.
or from this last winter,
Mhm.
and we talked about the basins.
Yeah.
Well, the basins are a thing.
They're
Okay.
a thing.
They are that, where they are basins, bowls,
Mhm.
surrounded by peaks.
Mhm.
And
pointy tall peaks.
yes, like I said, the 14,000 foot hills. And all that air gets trapped in
Yeah.
and can start swirling in the basins.
Anybody
Which makes for
who's
some
flown
fine skiing.
is fine, but anybody who's flown from Denver to LA,
Ah, yes.
you felt it. You know that the air takes on the shape of the
Mhm.
topography. It's not flat. So there's going to be those pockets, and it's
And
going to match that.
There's a bit of video of the turbulence, and I'm going to put it right here.
Okay, so we're having turbulence.
Just a bit.
Alice, you would love this. So yeah, we've had a warm day in Denver. So all that hot air is now coming up and it's cooling off. So it's going to be a bumpy ride, especially over the mountains. So, anyway, more later.
Because it's my favorite. I love it.
Oh, I had a great time.
We loved it.
I had a
Mom
great
did.
time.
Like flying to LA was the best. So good.
And you sit in the tail of the plane.
That's why the back of the plane is
sit
the
in the tail.
best.
You know, it's
Yeah.
Anyway, that geography, you feel it and you understand that, and that impacts the weather. It impacts how the air actually moves, how it can get trapped. So our best feature, our mountains are our best feature. It's what
Right.
people come here for.
but
is
can also be
so influential,
very
yeah.
influential and at times deadly.
dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
they
you got to
can be very
respect the
dangerous.
geography for sure.
But yeah, we can go on. We can go on and on. I mean, we can do an entire episode.
We already did.
We have done the geography.
Well,
We have
and
done
that's where
geography,
the extremes
you know.
of the geography too, because it is gradual and you do great gain elevation, but you've got plains and then mountains, and like it's
Right.
like they're there. It's not like this gradual buildup.
No, it's
like
grassland,
boom,
grassland, grassland, mountain.
bam. You know, and it influences a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah.
It really does. So before we move on to the next topic, I want to throw in a kind of slightly different. So kind of I was going to side topic of food as a Coloradan because, and I wish I had consulted.
That's jumping the gun.
Okay.
That's
Sorry.
jumping the gun. I tell you why. Right here.
Is it on there?
Is it
I
on
didn't
there?
think
It's
it was
not
on there.
food.
Or culture.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we can cover it then. So then back to the weather thing.
Pause.
It is back to. It is not unusual for us, particularly this time of year, to need heat in the morning and air conditioning in the afternoon.
100%.
Okay, it's because Kris and I were just fighting about this today. Or this week.
This week.
It's like,
It
why do we
wasn't-
got the heater on? The heater, why do we have the
It's
heater
so
on?
hot in the
Yeah.
morning. I don't want it on.
Yeah.
Well, it was
Well,
35,
60
30
in the house.
but it was like cold at night.
Yeah.
I know, but it was so hot in the house. when
Well,
we
and
went to
then
bed.
and then we have the AC on,
Yeah.
and then by the time we go to bed, why is it so cold in here?
We didn't grow up with air conditioning,
Yeah.
so we got to figure it out.
Up on Lookout, you just had the windows open and it
Right.
cool
That's
off.
what
No, air conditioning is a recent thing. It really
Yeah,
is.
it's
It's,
become
it's
more of-
recent.
Especially up here, it's more like living in Corpus. It was a have to. It was not a want.
Well,
to. It
and
was a
until
have to.
recently,
Oh yeah, yeah.
most Coloradans didn't have air
No.
conditioning because you didn't need it because it cools off here at night.
It's
And-
beautiful
and
at
so
night.
if you have decent airflow in your house that is windows on both sides so that you can
Or doors that you can open up.
Yeah.
and create a
yeah
convection
then
heat.
I mean with climate change it has gotten warmer here
It
over the
has.
summers and
It
so
has.
now
Very much.
AC is kind of needed
Well,
but
and that's the beautiful thing too about, especially with our climate. If you want to think about when the sun goes down at night, it does cool off. It takes you've got these 110-degree days. The sun goes down, temperature goes to 75, 80 degrees. It still sounds hot, but when that 20, 30-degree temperature change, it actually makes it, you get the relief from the heat and the relief from that oppressiveness of it, and you get to
Right.
take a breath, and it's like, oh, okay.
Well, and that's what I talked
Yeah.
about earlier. So what warms up, what goes up,
Yeah.
must come down.
yeah
So
we're lucky that way.
That's why those thunderstorms are so
They're
vitally
so
important.
vital.
oh yeah and they also will cool down everything too so that's
Yeah.
nice.
That was one of the hard things about moving away from here and going to a place where it's like stupid humid. When it would rain, it would get hotter. It
Oh,
would
yeah.
get more oppressive.
Oh, yeah.
It would get grosser, and it was there's
yeah.
no letting. And my body is so trained to expect that release and that like comfort and that take that breath, and it never came. And it was just like, I just want
I know right
Or
I just
when
want some cold.
it's dark
Or when
out
you-
but it's still 95 degrees
Yes.
you go outside and you brace for that cold drop of
yeah.
water, and it's not
Oh no,
cold.
the rain is hot.
Okay.
Like a thunderstorm out there.
That's-
Oh,
That's what irritated me about Orlando.
the rain is hot.
Okay, when we've gone to Orlando, and for the Disney World thing
Yeah.
that we do, and speak of a place that you can time
Oh
the
yeah,
weather.
Oh, yeah,
okay,
yeah.
you can always tell it's gonna rain at a particular point.
between 2 and 4 in the afternoon.
Exactly.
Generally
And,
speaking.
and the first time that I got caught in a rainstorm was at Epcot. And I was expecting it to be cold.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, here we go. And
It's not.
The shower.
And what's worse is when you get wet and then go inside with all that air conditioning.
and
That's when it
that's
gets
where you
bad.
get cold.
Yeah.
That's when it gets bad.
That's where you
Just
get
stay
cold.
outside.
Yeah.
Right?
But that was, and it was so stupid because I'm sitting there and I am soaked.
Oh yeah, you expect it and it doesn't come.
I am soaked.
Mhm.
And I'm walking around real slow.
No big
It's like,
deal.
oh, this is kind of nice. Okay.
Yeah. You're just wet.
Yeah. And then you go into living with the land.
Freeze. You freeze. That's like the extreme of those air conditioned buildings.
Yeah. Or go
Ugh.
or go and ride the imagination do Figment.
I love
Mhm.
Figment.
Well, yeah, but it's like
Shivering. Yeah, that's what's different here is when it does rain, it is cold water coming from the sky.
Yes.
It is not warm water. And I think that's what people who visit here expect our rivers, our lakes, our streams, our ponds, whatever, to be warm because in the South, those
Right.
things are
Or even
warm.
Right.
the Midwest.
You know?
Yeah.
It's, and then,
Here,
I don't get in the water even here in the summer.
Right.
I don't
You
fully
can't.
immerse myself. I can't physically with my health, but
Or-
like I don't go swimming in any of it
Yeah, the folks that come visit and they want to go wade in a creek
or go tubing down the river.
Yeah.
Yeah.
or just wading in a creek. And it's like, okay, let's go. You know, it's fine. Now, be prepared. And it's, oh, everything's going to be fine. Ka-thunk, ka-thunk.
Oh, it is cold. It's like
You know?
53 degrees and that's hot. That's like a hot
That's where the sun's been sitting
on it.
warming
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
It is cold because it's snow-fed river. So
Exactly. And they come out and they're shocked and surprised that their legs are white and their toes are blue.
or bright red because we've started
Right. You know,
bad things happening.
yeah, because the circulation's getting cut
gone.
off.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I don't do that. And that's where it was when I was in Corpus and you go into the water and you brace yourself and you're like,
Right.
okay, like you would for the rain. And then you get in the water, you're like, oh,
Now,
this is hot.
when we went down to the beach,
Uh-huh.
when coming to visit you, when we went down to the beach, though, that water was chilly.
It was chilly. Yeah,
that water was chilly.
yeah.
you
It was
know.
in the 70s.
Yeah. And, I was bracing for that. And it's like, okay, I assume that this is natural ocean water and it's going to be cold.
Mm-hmm.
I also have that mentality when I go to California to the beach.
Oh,
yeah.
that
'cause
water is going to be cold.
California
That
beaches
water
are
is cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, we end up, say, like at St. Pete's Beach,
Yeah, and it's like getting
You
into
know,
the bathtub.
and I get out there and I'm preparing for the water to be not cold.
Yeah.
And that's, you can tell with like climate change with that phenomenon too, because
Oh,
that water being
indeed.
70 degrees was very weird. That was, and we had the turtles were affected. Cold stun events are much more common down there because the
Exactly.
temperature of the water is changing
Exactly.
because of air temperature changing.
That's right. And that kind of segues into wildlife and our wildlife. Now, I know this is your wheelhouse. Alice.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is your wheelhouse. And you've talked before about the big five,
Yeah.
but we have more than just five.
We do. We do.
have a lot more
We have
than
a lot
just
more.
five.
Yeah.
So why don't you just go ahead and lead us away and talk about,
Well-
let's talk about animals.
So our climate, our geography also influences the types of ecosystems that you find here in Colorado. And we have officially between 6 and 8. It depends on how you break it down, especially with the mountains being our biggest feature. Sorry, you asked.
No, I know.
You all asked me.
Yeah, no, that's good.
So plains, we are part of the Great Plains. You hear about that in history. You hear about part that we have grasslands for a good hunk of our state. So about 2/3 of our state is grasslands. And that's shrublands, that's grasslands, it's tall grasslands, short grasslands. There's different types of grass, look it up, out there that are important because, you have different kinds of animals who need things. So of course you're going to have your bison, your antelope, your pronghorns, you're going to have your foxes, you're going to have your snakes, you're going to have prairie dogs, you're going to have your black-footed ferrets. Like those are the common
Raccoons.
things, and those are wetlandsy.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
aren't there yet.
Okay.
So you've got those typical grassland plains animals that you'd see from Canada all the way down to Mexico in that belt of of North America that has that. It's low rain, high temperatures, which is perfect for grass to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not your Kentucky bluegrass.
No.
It's pokey. It's kind of waxy. It's not
There's
comfortable to sit on.
There's some such thing called razor grass.
Yeah, but it's perfect eating for your bison and your pronghorn and your antelope. And then you've got your even the plains, you're going to have some cats come down and do some hunting that way. So you've got a good balance with there. Then we're moving west as we go with go ahead.
I was just going to say also those grasses are perfect for certain kinds of birds.
Yes.
To nest in.
Well, our state bird, the lark bunting, is a plains bird, and it nests in those.
I'll find a picture of it here.
Yeah, burrowing owls are perfect out there. Burrowing owls are very common out there.
Oh, they're so cool.
Grouse,
quail, and pheasant,
grouse,
and turkeys.
Yeah. We've got, so you see a lot of those kind of plains birds. So the diversity is high for what the kind of climate we have. So now we're moving west. We're going to hit our riparian habitats. So we've got all of those habitats that are found along rivers. So you've got your ponds, lakes, streams. You've got your wetlands, which is where your raccoon's going to come in. But then wetlands are really important because they serve as nursery grounds, grocery stores, and stopping grounds for a lot of migratory animals. So you've got a lot of birds and animals coming in. And because they are so lush, because they're near water, they provide a lot of great spaces. So nurseries for the animals that need to have their babies protected. That's why you find a lot of ducks and ducklings in there, because those great nesting grounds. You've got great spaces for animals to come in and rest and hang out, but it's also a great grocery store for those predators to come in and find food. Wetland plants in particular, they're excellent at doing a lot of filtering. So wetlands aren't necessarily wet all the time. They're wet. And ours are seasonally wet. If you go down to Florida, they're perpetually wet.
Right.
So it just depends. But if we do have that big rainy season or the melt off in particular, that water has to have some place to go, and the wetlands soak that up. They're big sponges. They filter out bad stuff to put the clean water back into the river systems, which then go downstream and end up in the oceans. And one of the things that we are seeing with some of the pollution that's heading in the oceans is the wetlands are being destroyed, which is affecting the ability to naturally clean the water. We're also seeing big impacts on migratory birds because there's no place to stop.
Right.
Like that,
right.
Those long.
There's no oasis.
There's no place to hang out and rest up, eat a good meal, hang out, and then migrate south for the winter. Like, so those migratory paths are just moving more north, which, that impacts the ability for a baby to survive. Because the nesting grounds are usually in the south.
Now, speaking of those resting spots, some of the man-made areas do qualify as a resting spot. Case in point, City Park.
Yes. Yeah.
Every Canadian goose I have ever encountered is in City Park.
Well, and it's, a lot of things too is that humans are naturally designed to build near water. Yeah. Which are wetlands.
Yeah, of course.
So there's a lot of give and take with, building. If you destroy a wetland, you replace a wetland. There's a lot of that, especially now with a better understanding of the importance of wetlands and how they are needed. In the early 90s, about 90% of United States wetlands were impacted by human growth.
Right.
And since then, and since that understanding, there's been a big restoration where we're back to about 70% recovery with that. So we've seen some good things change.
That's a pretty good bounce back.
It's a good bounce back, but it's that understanding of that you got to put it back.
Yeah.
Right.
And pollution and there's a human impact on it too. Dirty water.
Sure. Right.
You need clean water. So we got riparians, and then you move up into the foothills, and this is where you kind of mountain habitats. There's, as you get higher, the habitats are going to change. So you've got your shrublands, you've got your high plains deserts, you've got your lodgepole pine forest, you've got your pine forest, you've got your subalpine forest, and then finally you've got your alpine habitats. And all of those are really impacted by the amount of water that falls. Now, Colorado in particular, our rainfall alone is less than 10 inches a year.
That's right.
Compared to a rainforest, which is over 200 inches of rain a month.
Oh my gosh.
So you got these, if you want to get and even in the South, if you want to even go in the South, they get 3 to 4 times more rain a month than we do
In a year. Wow.
Yeah, I
So
believe that.
it's just really like we are a high plains desert, and because of that, our spaces and our plants and our animals are not designed for a whole lot of water.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So bringing in things that require a lot of water has impact on what is in balance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it throws
HOAs.
things out of balance. There you go.
HOAs, your Kentucky bluegrass.
No.
Stop
bad
it,
idea.
Thing.
It's not,
Not here.
Xeriscaping is something to think about, and
Mm-hmm.
bringing things back to what it used to be, and those not comfy grasses. I'm allergic to all grass, so I don't really care.
Well,
I can't be around it.
I know, but I am a big fan of xeriscaping.
It can be very beautiful.
It is
I mean,
quite
because
lovely.
we have some local plants that
Well,
are gorgeous.
Anybody love a succulent?
Thank you.
You know, that's
Thank you.
what we've got around here. So,
Yes.
you know, when you look and as we go up into our mountains, and I think I talked about this on previous episodes of what our forests should look like. Lodgepole pine forests are not dense forests. That is something that happens back east. Our forests are spread out and wide. And so the impact of humans coming this way to settle impacted our forests, and that changed balance. Now, can we go back? Probably not.
No.
But probably not. With that said, but knowing that there's balance in management with all of, where plants, there's animals, they go together. This is what ecology is all about, is that balance between the living and the non-living things. And the living things that are in there, there's a certain amount of water that all living things need. There's a certain amount of water that is needed to keep habitats and ecosystems healthy. And when that's impacted because of human use, there you go. Colorado River in particular, 7 states and 2 countries depend on that river alone. And it is the most legislated river in the United States.
Yes, it is.
It is also running in a deficit all the time. And when that builds up, you see that having big impact on a lot of stuff.
I will try and find a picture of the Colorado River headwaters
The basin.
here. And then I'm going to show you the end of the Colorado
Well,
River.
it used to be in La Paz, Mexico.
Here.
No longer, it's no longer really getting to La Paz.
No,
So,
and it's not that nice windy river-ish thing anymore. It's more of a it's a mud spot.
and how we change and how we impact the rivers is how we're going to impact the animals that live in the rivers. Our
That's right.
native fish, we have 4 endangered species of native fish in particular. Our state fish is one of those, and it's actually a plains fish. It's not a mountain fish.
Now that I didn't realize. That I didn't
Greenback
realize.
cutthroats are actually a native to the South Platte River system,
Right.
and
right,
not
okay.
the Colorado River system. So
See that now that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, but I didn't even realize, because when I've seen greenback cutthroats, they've always been up in the hills.
there's the greenback cutthroats. There are Rio Grande cutthroats and Colorado River cutthroats as well.
Gotcha.
So, but
gotcha.
the greenback
Okay.
cutthroat, which is our state fish, is
Right.
out there.
Right.
And in the mountains, that's where you're going to see your big 5. We already talked about that. And those animals that live there, again, are designed for living in extremes. It's
Yep.
extremely hot. It's extremely cold. It's extremely windy. It's extremely dry. It's extremely, there's all of those extremes when you get to the top of the earth. And these animals are perfectly designed for that. Our mountains are beautiful places and people want to live there. Living there impacts.
Right.
And understanding that there's a balance that's required, and management plans and animal management plans are there for a purpose. And it's not to be, there's a lot of work that goes into those, and it's not to be disrespectful to the human population that's there, because they are designed to create balance. And it's really strategic and important that you do your research, and you listen and read and watch and pay attention to what's going on around you. And it's not all doom and gloom. There's some really great stories. The North American river otter was extinct in Colorado.
Right.
Not in its whole range, just in Colorado. And we
Right.
were able to bring in populations from Louisiana and the South, and now we have healthy populations of river otters. It's called being an extirpated species, not an endangered species. They are actually off the state endangered species list. They're a protected species because they were extirpated, but it's one of those, like, there are things, management plans working really well. The wolf is another one. I know that's pretty, I'm going to be,
Oh, that's a controversial one.
I know, but
Yeah.
it's actually it's working.
Yeah, no,
You know,
I know.
and the Yellowstone wolves were coming down anyway.
Oh, I was going to say, they were on their way.
They were on their way anyway.
They were
So
on their
really
way.
looking at building those populations back in Colorado and creating healthy things, because for the longest time, everybody loves to see deer and elk and great. Yeah, but those populations are overrunning places. There was no predator
Right.
to take over. You know, we didn't have the mountain lions are being pushed out. The bobcats are being pushed out. The wolves weren't here. We no longer have grizzly bears
Right.
No.
in the lower 48. Grizzly
Right.
bears in the mountains don't exist. We have brown bears and black bears, but we don't have grizzly. And when you take away those predators, it throws the whole entire balance off. And then management plans incorporate people. So that's where hunting and fishing is such a big thing in Colorado. And a lot of those dollars go back to those management plans.
Right.
They are not going to state funding. They're
No.
going back 100% to those state management plans and our ecosystems, and making sure that Colorado is healthy and thriving. And those dollars with those recreational uses are being used for that, and the education of the people who come here to enjoy that. So
Right.
sorry, soapbox.
No, this is why I had this
But
section
it's-
for you.
Yeah, I mean, this
okay?
is definitely what I do for a living.
Yeah.
The key takeaways here is Colorado is diverse. We have a lot of diversity. We have a lot of different types of animals. You see, yes, we have amphibians. Tiger salamanders are the native amphibian.
Yay!
We have one native amphibian, the tiger salamander.
Yes.
But you see those things. You have reptiles, birds, fish, mammals, tons of invertebrates. Oh my goodness. Like, we have the diversity of invertebrates in Colorado is a lot
Yes.
compared
Yes.
to, now, not the rainforest. We're never going to go there. But, you know, when you think about places, even in deserts that don't have a lot of water increases more plants increases diversity. So you see that diversity change as you go higher up. But, you know, we've got a lot of cool things that need to share space. And being, you know, if you want to go for a hike, look with a purpose. There's going to be something alive that you're going to encounter.
Exactly.
And it's awesome. So,
And don't pet the forbidden kitten.
Don't
okay?
just don't
The
pet
black and white-
anything.
yeah, the black and white forbidden cat.
Just
which
don't
is
touch anything.
A skunk. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Another takeaway too is because of our diversity and because of the different kinds of ecosystems we have here and why we are the way we are in Colorado is we get to experience a lot of things, and it's in our backyard, and we don't have to really go very far
Quite literally
Yeah,
in
we-
our
to
backyard.
see some amazing things.
Yeah, well, and this is why I love living in the housing development that I'm in. Okay, we do have a little wetland that's just outside my door,
Because
essentially.
they had to replace one that was built on
yeah.
next to the river.
The problem is they had to cut everything down
Mm-hmm.
because it
and dredge
got-
it. And,
it got too choked.
Well, and that's the bad, like if there's not a lot of flow in a wetland, it does choke itself up. So there
Right.
has to be continual movement of water.
Right. So they basically cut down all the cattails, but unfortunately, all of our raccoons are gone. All of our foxes are gone. A lot of the rabbits are gone.
As it grows, it'll come back.
Yeah, but a lot of the coyote aren't around anymore.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things is when I was still working is going out at 3 a.m. and watching the family of raccoons cross the street.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Walking, I mean, mama and 3 babies.
So I guess, you know, like as a Colorado kid, you get to see some really diverse, amazing things that are unique to us. I mean, prairie dog, we think of as, it's another prairie dog. There are people who come from other countries specifically to see our prairie dog
That's
towns.
right.
Like,
That's right.
they are the most exotic thing that they've ever seen in their lives. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, okay.
Right.
Same with ferret. Like, it's just,
Well, I mean, and
It's our home.
even more common. Okay, I do have a friend that's from Australia, and they don't necessarily have squirrels.
squirrels.
on
Squirrels
Australia.
are a big deal.
She came here, and one of her big things was, I want to see a squirrel.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I said, like that one right over there.
Oh my God.
Exactly.
Like the freak out. Yeah. And
Exactly.
we're so used to that.
And we've seen black squirrels, red squirrels, gray
Gray
squirrels,
squirrels.
yeah,
all of the
ground
squirrels.
Yeah.
All of
You
you
know.
pick a squirrel, we got it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of why we are the way we are, and why. And I have to say, I like growing up here and knowing that we understand the importance of that wildlife. for not only the diversity and making sure that systems work correctly, but it's also, we understand it's our bread and butter.
Oh yeah.
And that we want to keep it around and we want to protect it. So it's very much ingrained in Colorado kids and Coloradoans to save resources. We are always under water restrictions.
Always.
Like there is not a time where like we are always in a drought. Living in drought is normal. Mm-hmm. And so we understand that, and we're very protective over water and how much we use. We're very protective of wildlife and understanding that there are times when you can and you can't because of seasonal changes, migratory birds.
Exactly.
Big time here. So you see some things some time of the year and see some things that are not time of the year. Depends on if you're in the south or you're in the north. Like there's just a lot of diversity here. And I think that as Coloradoans, we are built with that appreciation.
And something that was interesting to me, and then I'm going to ask you about your experience when you moved to Corpus, is, and I wish I had asked Kat beforehand because I know she encountered this when she was in school in Illinois, but growing up on Lookout, I knew black squirrels, I knew elk in my backyard, skunks living under my porch, which was not so great. Porcupines were a common sight.
Porcupines, I forgot about our porcupines.
Hummingbirds when you get up a little bit more in elevation,
getting dive bombed by hummingbirds.
Oh my goodness. And then they make a specific noise.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do.
And you're like, that is the biggest mosquito I've ever heard.
Well,
but
and
no, it's
they're little
hummingbird.
chirps.
Yeah.
It's a
squeak.
series.
It's a squeak.
Yeah, but it's a series because they do it while they're flying.
Yeah.
Right. And then, the Midwesterners would come out and go, oh my gosh, what insect is that? And it's a bird.
That's
it's
a bird.
Hummingbird. And then moving down here, where I've been now for most of my adult life, on the plains, is prairie dogs were pretty darn exciting for me because they weren't a common occurrence up there. The rattlesnakes, or even just bull snakes. Sure, there's snakes in the mountains too, but they weren't as common, I guess.
They come out.
What else was unique down here? Oh, and then the hawks. Oh my goodness, we have hawks everywhere. And when I was like literally in our backyard, we have our circle of life, right? So we'll get the rabbits in, and then they hang out for a while. And just when I think I'm never going to have a garden again, there's a hawk sitting on my fence, and suddenly the rabbits aren't as prevalent. So there we go. Bald eagles.
Yep.
Living out here. And they seem to be getting... their population seems to be growing because I see them more frequently.
They've been removed off the endangered species list for about at least 10 years now. So,
but even with, I was worried that as the new builds were heading north, that would disappear. But they still are quite prevalent. And so even just going from living up on Lookout and going to school in Golden versus being down here north of Denver, the wildlife is quite different. There's some overlap, but there's the difference.
And to help answer that question, because I think I know where you're going with, in Corpus, I was on the Gulf.
Right.
So I had all of the Gulf animals and saltwater to deal with, which was very different since I'm all freshwater.
And so
and brackish
you're freaking
water.
out about what when the natives are like, oh, that. Yeah.
Dolphins.
Oh, okay.
Dolphins are very common, and they come up and very close. Sea turtles.
Sure.
Red drum.
What about
bonefish? Like
what about land-based things?
Gator.
Okay.
That we didn't have to, and the bugs.
Yeah, it was funny.
Giant, enormous,
when
unending populations of bugs.
Well, and that's what brings the diversity of
it's just, oh my gosh, they're huge. Talk about mosquitoes that are the size of birds. Like, it is
for real.
It is crazy.
I remember since I drove down with you to help you move down, and we had to hit Home Depot once or twice, and I went by the kind
pest
of
control.
Yeah, we went by pest control, and I was shocked at the diverse kinds of pest controls that we just don't have here. And I thought, wow, yeah, this is a different world.
You
down
commented,
here.
the one, I stole the story, you commented of scorpion repellent.
Yeah.
Scorpion repellent. Like,
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
to deal with, like, you have to deal with scorpions. I'm like, yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
And I expect
Tarantula? What,
like-
tarantulas are a big one.
yeah.
Well, Southern Colorado, we have tarantulas.
Yeah, but not as much.
Well, no,
Well,
true,
and that's
true.
just it. Is
true.
like I expect scorpions in southern Colorado, in northern New Mexico. Well, New Mexico west, right through the desert. But I was like, they're in Corpus.
Yeah.
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 Weird.
No, I
Okay.
believe that.
I'm
believe
thinking
that.
poisonous snakes, and maybe some different kinds of spiders and stuff. But
It was the size and the amount of bugs, and then having to deal with all of the water stuff.
yeah.
Like the land stuff, you just kind of roll with the punches. But that was
what
a big
land
difference.
mammals were unique, if any?
There weren't.
Really?
Yeah. Bobcats
Okay.
were
Okay, yeah.
normal.
Yeah.
Mountain lions were normal. Puma, they call them puma.
Right.
Okay.
Even bighorn sheep in the hill country.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, I believe that.
Birds, other than I guess it would
Other
be
than your shorebirds.
Shorebirds would be the
shorebirds, right.
difference.
Okay.
Because with migration, we have migration paths. So all those birds that were migrating through Colorado ended up in southern Texas.
I see.
So that was not.
That's how they get their
that's-
robins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the killdeer, all of our
Oh,
killdeer
geez, yeah.
go down there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was that. It was really the big diversity was the saltwater stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're like, oh my gosh,
I like
dolphins,
it.
and they're all
Well, because I am
dolphin.
I am true to my gender of being a girl.
Oh, jeez.
So take that with what
Actually,
you will.
you know what?
Take that
No.
with what you will.
No, that's wrong. That's what that should be about.
Yeah.
That should be, yeah.
I am doing what I do for a living because I am a
Yeah.
cis female
All right.
that wants to work with dolphins because they're beautiful.
Well, they
So-
are.
I hope you all figured out by now. We got animals.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of, again,
Not sorry for my rant.
why we are the way we are. Okay. Culture.
Okay.
Now let's actually talk about why we are
The way
the
we are.
and what that really means.
Yeah, and that's a good question because then
You
you have
know?
to really think about it. I know you're going to bring up food.
Yeah,
So
so
let's start there.
Let's start
All right.
with food.
Let's start there.
So
Easy.
food. I was going to say a couple of things. One is green chili for breakfast. Is
Oh,
Amen.
yeah.
There, now I see it.
Yeah.
right. It's not just for dinner.
It's a condiment.
I mean,
Thank you,
yes,
yes.
It's used for everything.
it is in everything. And while we have the friendly controversy of whose chili is chilies that then make green chili
You know what?
are better,
I
is New
don't
Mexico
care.
or Colorado. And to be
Yeah.
honest, yeah, I
Yes.
don't care.
Southern Colorado has good chilies. Hatch, New
are-
Mexico has excellent chilies.
Right.
I mean,
Yes, please.
okay.
I will try them all.
We don't lose.
We don't care.
We
Right?
don't lose.
Like,
okay?
no.
You know,
Bring on the competition. Let us try them
Well,
all.
I will eat them all.
that's
Thank
right.
We will.
That's right.
Eat them all.
So good.
I also think that at least in the Denver area, we're kind of north meets south, east meets west here, and that Southern cuisine isn't that uncommon.
No.
True.
And
a good fried chicken. We can have a good
I
fried
mean,
chicken here.
yeah, and like Yankee cuisine is
Mhm.
also not that uncommon.
Pot roast.
We have a good hot dish around here.
Yeah, we
sometimes.
do.
We do.
Yeah, we
Okay.
do.
Maybe not as fish based, but yes.
True.
We don't do salads that aren't really salads, though. I will.
No, we do not do that. That's
It
true.
depends on the church.
Well,
you
it
go
depends
to.
on the church you go. But qualification, our pastor growing up was from the Midwest.
He was from Minnesota.
He was from Minnesota, so
Yeah.
he brought a lot of that.
oh,
with him.
boy, did he!
So
Yes,
Pastor
he
Schoenwald,
did.
I love you,
Yep.
and we got to learn
Love
a
you,
lot.
miss you.
I love but yes, we did get a lot of hot dish.
Anyway, you
Keep
were
going.
saying.
We knew good Mexican food, whereas you had, I don't know, you don't even have to get as far as the Mississippi. As soon as you like
Get Nebraska.
hit Nebraska,
No shame.
even, I mean, it's different now, but when I was growing up, nobody even knew what a Taco Bell was, much less something good.
That's not really Mexican food.
Well,
No,
that-
I understand,
They would
but they-
think that Taco Bell was good.
They didn't
Mexican.
even know
Right.
what a taco was.
Oh, there we go.
Much less have good Mexican
Yeah.
food. Now, with my immigration and such, that's no longer the case.
Well-
Plus, people discovered that it's quite delicious, and therefore,
Fantastic.
Here's the beautiful thing about our region. We are influenced by a lot of different peoples.
yes.
Yeah, we are.
So we have our indigenous peoples
Mhm.
that were here.
Mm-hmm.
Even up from Mexico, we have a lot of the
Right.
Latin indigenous being
Yes.
up in here.
Yes.
We have a lot of
And
Azteca.
Azteca, yes. And then you have the influence of colonization
Yes.
Mhm.
with Europeans coming through.
This
Irish were huge. German were huge.
We've got actual European Spanish,
Mm-hmm.
Irish, as
Irish.
you say, English, French,
French.
German. I mean,
It was so we have a lot of influences in that part
Big
of it.
Italian
Big
from working on the
Italian for
railroads.
and southern
Yes.
Colorado,
Southern
in particular,
Colorado
yeah.
for the railroads.
huge
Same with
Italian. set.
Chinese,
Yeah,
right?
we have
Yeah.
yes.
So
Oh.
a lot of people were brought in to work mines, to work railroad, and all of those cultures brought with them their food. So we
Hallelujah.
were so lucky to have a very diverse, good food collective here.
I will come out and say this, and I'll go out on a limb and say this. I think that we had fusion before fusion was a thing.
It was
Yes,
we could have you
absolutely.
could if
You
you
know.
wanted it, you got it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Kind of thing.
Sometimes you had to know who,
And what part
because
of
it
town
wasn't necessarily, they didn't necessarily open restaurants, but if
No.
you knew
knew the people's.
the
Going-
peoples, you
going
could do
after-
that.
After elementary school, walking home from camp. Hey, Chuck, you want to come over and have a burrito?
Yes.
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know,
Well, and with all of that diversity too, you get a lot of cultural influence on here, and I think a great way, and I always describe this to people because I've actually lived elsewhere. We're a group of people who are put our head down and get the work done,
hmm
okay,
and it
okay,
doesn't matter who you are, male, female, purple, white, whatever. If you have the ability to get the work done, you get your head down and you get the work done.
the fence has got to be mended.
Everybody's got to contribute because the more hands make the work light, and you got to
Mhm.
get in there and you get it.
The well
done.
won't dig itself.
So
Fence has got to get mended. Cow's got to be brought in.
everybody got to contribute, and it doesn't matter. And not boy jobs and girl jobs, not to go
No
there
such
with
thing.
that, but it's
No
just
such
it
thing.
didn't matter.
Right.
If you can wield a shovel, you wield a shovel. If you can,
That's
or
right.
what
That's right.
what
tie
your
fence,
the wealth of your family or your family
Mm-mm.
history
did not matter.
I mean, it did matter, as I've just read a book about a Native American woman growing up in Colorado,
Yeah.
in the Denver area. And yes, it did matter for sure. But essentially, though, the opportunity to pull yourself up in society, we didn't have the severe
social class,
social classes.
The stratification was not as pronounced.
Correct.
If,
So
if that makes any sense.
and the people who got rich here did hard work.
oh yeah.
Mhm.
They worked hard to get the money, and then the money allowed some changes in how hard they did have to work.
Right.
But
yeah.
there was a lot of hard work. So I think that I've noticed that there's not a lot of you can't do it. It's
Oh yeah.
come
Yeah.
and help me do it.
And you experienced the opposite
I-
of that when you moved to the
Fully,
south,
yes.
right? So
Yes.
we didn't I mean, I didn't understand that difference, and that we didn't have that, because you always see it to some degree, right? But
Well, you think it's like lore.
or yeah,
Yeah, it's part of it's part of the trope.
and I know
Yeah.
we're
But
three white people sitting here talking about this, and
Yeah,
so many
so-
others probably have different experiences to share. But I guess in comparison to other parts of the United States,
We are sharing our experience.
Mhm.
Our experience is not the experience.
exactly.
Okay.
So I did want to preface with that, but I do know what you're saying in that, particularly because you grew up in a pretty diverse community, so
Yes.
you saw that equality or more equality because you have friends that are diverse backgrounds. My growing up was fairly white bread, so I have no
we
way
didn't
to speak
we
on
didn't
that.
have like we had it felt like we had everybody,
We did.
you know, and
did.
everybody got to do and everybody was expected to do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, and moving away and to a completely different culture and getting
Getting you don't worry about that.
I was no.
Yeah, you
Right.
just go sit down, little lady. We got this.
And I mean, I don't there are some things that I appreciate about respect and helping and that,
Mm.
but I don't like being dismissed because.
Mm.
Oh, indeed.
And
Indeed.
that's where I felt a huge difference.
Mhm.
It was, let me help you because you need help. It wasn't because I was female needing help
Right.
or female because I was incapable because I'm female. It was, you need help.
Yeah.
Right.
Going
Right.
to the South, it was very much different.
The women don't do that.
I was like, really? I was told that. I was told girls don't do that. And I was like,
Wow.
really?
Wow.
This girl does.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm.
Like,
Oh.
Yeah. What do you mean you want a screwdriver and a drill? Yes, I want a screwdriver and a drill because I can fix that. Oh, well, girls don't do that. Really? This girl does.
There you go.
This girl does, and this girl was
and-
taught by her dad and her
I
grandfather
was gonna
how.
say, not
and
only do we,
it
we
was
are expected.
expected.
Yeah.
See, and I will go back to what we were talking about the diversity that we grew up with. I did not really notice
Me neither.
that there was
Diversity.
Well, no, it's not that there was diversity, that there was an actual line drawn in the sand
Mm.
until I started experiencing outside of the community I grew up in.
Mhm.
Now, partially, I will admit, yes, that could have been also a big symptom of my privilege. Okay,
Yeah.
I do accept that.
Yeah.
I do accept that. And I am working very hard to recognize that for what it is. But I also didn't really realize that, all of my friends who were,
Of color.
everybody who was in the same class with me, it was multicultural,
Mhm.
hugely multicultural. And I didn't realize that there was a definitive line drawn in the sand until I got older.
Mhm.
Mm.
That's true. I
Okay.
feel the same way.
And I believe that in general, I would like to say that is Colorado and that is part of the
I
Colorado
agree
culture.
with you there. I agree with you there, Chuck.
I would like to say. I didn't really notice that there was a line drawn in the sand until I got older, until I started paying attention to things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is why I have to be very, very careful with that and recognize about what is actually what I'm seeing versus what I'm seeing through the lens of my privilege.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I try to make that distinction.
But yeah, just seeing who your friend group was
exactly.
in your high school
Yeah.
get-togethers. I don't want to say high school reunions because you all just get together on your own.
In general, yeah.
Yeah, and population is pretty diverse
It's hugely diverse still.
Yeah.
I mean,
within your friend group, and like nobody, it just wasn't.
like I
a
said,
thing.
yeah, with the people we grew up with, I mean, there wasn't a difference.
So kind of going back to what I said earlier about, we're people that just put our head down and get the work done. Doesn't matter who you are. I think that kind of sums up the whole
Mhm.
discussion too, of just, you're expected to do things and you're expected
Right.
to take care of what you need to take care of.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, any of that. You have a responsibility, and we're people who take that responsibility seriously.
Yeah. Well, because
Did-
life was hard here,
yes.
and you came out and you thought, oh, I'm going to go mine for gold. How hard can that be? And it's hard, right? It's-
Yeah.
Yeah, hard rock mining. And so the ones who stayed,
It's granite.
we took it for granted.
Oh no.
Had to throw that in there.
Oh,
But the ones who stayed, are the ones that are tough, that just put their head down,
Well-
got it done, right?
I made the joke earlier when we were coming home from the store yesterday, or was it today?
I don't know.
Oh, it was today coming home from the
Tell me
gym.
joke.
From the gym.
Yeah.
When I was saying, you had friends who,
Oh, right.
had,
Yes.
that. It's like, and they want to shake your hand like that. It's like, because they're on a competition steel driving team,
Yeah.
Right.
and they didn't
Yeah.
lose their fingers from alligators. They lost their fingers from sledgehammers.
Yep. It's like, we know what end you're on the team.
Yeah. You hold the steel, don't you?
Yeah.
But that again, part of the culture.
Mhm.
We are that goofy. We are very outdoorsy.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
You
very.
know, and the reason is because we have a great backyard and we want to go play in it.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's sunny most of the days
Like
of the
I
year.
said, 320
Yeah.
days of sun on average.
Yeah. If it's
Cold-
not sunny for 2 days, we all start to get really depressed.
And the cold never bothered us anyways.
I'm getting to the age, honestly, where this is where it changes with me. I don't like snow.
I love it still.
I'm done with it.
I'm older than you, and I love it still.
I know. I don't get it.
Well, I grew up.
I like the
because of
change.
what I grew up doing.
Right.
I love the change of seasons.
Yes.
Okay. I would be sad if I didn't see my seasons. One of the things about our culture as well is we are very, very creative. We have a very big arts thing and an art scene with music, visual arts. It's we do a lot. I mean, we have in Denver one of the biggest and most well-known dance studios.
Oh,
True.
Cleopatra Robinson.
That's right.
She's one of my. Oh, I love that stuff.
Yeah.
So good.
And without her,
5 Points is so cool.
yeah, without her, we
Oh.
wouldn't have that kind of
Right.
part of our culture.
World renowned.
That's right.
Mhm.
When we talked about the Chapultepec,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
we got a heavy jazz scene here in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
We have jazz festivals. There are several jazz festivals that happen for the major part of the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
So-
and then Telluride,
Yeah.
The Telluride Jazz Festival,
Festival.
Evergreen Jazz Festival,
Winter Park.
Winter Park has a jazz festival. I mean, like I said, people go to these mountain towns, and there we are.
And bluegrass.
And,
Uh-huh.
The big
Lions.
bluegrass up in Lyons.
Yes, indeed.
That's world renowned as
It
well.
is.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, we're more than just recreational pot.
We're more than
Okay.
we're just more than skiing too. I think
Yeah.
Exactly.
we're not ski
Exactly.
bums.
Exactly.
We're not.
Well, not all of you.
True.
We're more than just ski bums. Like we're more than.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's we're this and.
Exactly.
I think if you want to put that on their culture too, it's we're this and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not all of us run around wearing red flannels or wearing flannel
Patagonia.
flannel plaid shirts, blue jeans, and clunky boots. Okay, we're not
I
that.
do.
No.
We're not that.
Well, or I'm wearing Birkenstocks whether it's winter or summer. It
Yeah,
just
because,
determines if I'm wearing.
Well, the
socks or
Colorado
not.
Kid uniform is shorts, socks, Birks, and a hoodie.
Yep.
I still wear closed-toe shoes. Sorry.
I do too. My feet hurt so bad.
Yeah.
I'm not part of the uniform, but if you want to talk about
Well, no, it's the
uniform.
fact that we live in a place where rocks fall.
my
Well, yeah.
Okay,
But I would.
listen, I
And I'm
busted
al-
my foot.
I'm already missing a foot and toe, so
you don't need to worry about it.
Yeah,
I mean, I do wear closed-toed shoes a little more now than I used to. But yeah,
Right.
I mean, I think there was 1 or 2 years when I was in high school that I didn't wear anything but my Birks, even when I was walking up and down the mountain to.
I get it.
Now, if I was riding my bike, of course, I would wear closed-toe shoes because that was reinforced not only by my parents
Ouch,
from a
oh.
very young age, but also from a pretty major injury that would have
I'm
been devastating had I been in sandals.
So
So, yeah.
So yeah, that's us.
there we are.
There we are.
This is why we are the way we are. I mean, I can't really put it any other way.
Well, and it hopefully it gives a little bit of light of when you come here and you interact with the few natives that you get to interact with. And it's also why people want to come here.
Well, yeah,
and why
exactly.
we're a big place that people settle.
Mhm.
Because the other thing with our culture, we are welcoming.
Yeah, we want you to come.
but we are
Sure.
welcoming, and we understand that where we live is beautiful and amazing, and we're privileged that this is our home and our backyard, and we want to share it, and we want people to understand it too, and
respect it. Yeah,
respect it. Yeah,
yeah. But
Yeah, definitely respect it. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Don't ruin what we got,
Right.
because if you do, then nobody has it.
Well, and it's not what you love about it. So
Right. Anyway,
Sure.
that's us.
That's us.
And I don't know what we're going to do next or in 2 weeks, because I haven't
something.
figured anything else out. I mean, this was sort of a spur of the moment kind of thing of we need to explain who we are.
Kind of a
because-
nice wrap up to the Colorado series too. So
That's true.
Yeah, we got to think of something that, well, there's still so much about Colorado we can talk about,
Well,
but
true.
I mean,
I know.
there's
Yeah.
other things
There
that
are
we
other-
need to talk about.
Yeah.
Because you got a trip coming up.
I do.
You got a trip coming up this summer.
Prepping, yes.
So
4 months away.
we might want to talk a little bit about that. We might want to talk about a little bit more about trip prepping.
Yeah.
And what we do to go to trips,
Yes.
go on trips and things. Because during this podcast, we've done at least a couple.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, there
Yeah.
we are.
Well,
Travel on business versus travel for fun.
for
Exactly.
closure, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So anyway, that's us.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Yeah.
And we will see you in 2 weeks with something,
With something
new.
new.
Thanks. Bye.
Did it open up? I think I strained my throat.